This month's continuing education class is an Incident Command refresher course. This class is based on the concepts outlined in the Fire Command textbook, authored by Alan V. Brunacini and delivered through the Blue Card Incident Command Training and Certification Program. With approximately 900 members of this department holding Blue Card Incident Command certifications, it is important for all of our members to be familiar with the 8 functions of command and fire-ground communications. This class provides us with an opportunity to review the Blue Card program and fire-ground communications. It is the hope of Professional Development Command that the information contained within this class will be used to bridge the gap until all of our officers and engineer operators have had the opportunity to participate in the certification program. In order to accomplish this feat, the Houston Fire Department has once again applied for an Assistance to Firefighter grant through the Federal Emergency Management Agency to support the Incident Command certification process. The 8 functions of command provide the incident commander with a standard, predictable, sane, and lucid job description. Command procedures give the IC overall responsibility for the incident. The procedures also provide the IC with the organizational authority to put incident responders to work with a common set of tactical objectives. In order for this basic incident management game plan to be effective, all responders must follow an agreed-upon, written down in SOG form, practice set of common command procedures prior to the event. This is particularly crucial in view of the typical, quick, fast-moving, dangerous incident conditions where the system will be applied. The incident command system must be applied to every incident. Saving the command system exclusively for the big one is just another way of saying your department does not use, practice, or have an actual incident command system. The ongoing, everyday, every event use of the incident command system makes it a regular and habitual way of managing an emergency response. In this class, we will review the 8 functions of command. We will look at deployment, the assumption, confirmation, and positioning of command, situation evaluation, strategy and incident action planning, communications, the organization itself, the ability to review, evaluate, and revise the incident action plan, and the continuation, support, and termination of the command process. As members of the fire department, we are called to solve physical problems, and we usually create a solution to the problem through some form of action. For firefighters, action feels good and is why we signed up to do the job. Delaying that gratification to evaluate the situation can often be disheartening. Unfortunately, slowing down departmental operations to accurately evaluate the nature of the event before placing resources into the game is a necessary component of a solid risk management plan. The initial size-up produces the information that becomes the basis for the incident strategy and incident action plan. Investing a small amount of time to evaluate the critical fireground factors is extremely important to initial and ongoing incident command operational success. The most current, accurate, and relevant information obtained by the IC will generally provide the foundation for successful operations throughout an event. This systematic evaluation process continually produces standard, safe, and well-managed incident outcomes. The major goal of every incident commander should be to match the standard conditions, which are represented by the 8 critical fireground factors, with standard actions that are represented by departmental SOGs in order to elicit a standard outcome on every incident. Command function number 1, deployment. Major goal, to provide and manage a steady, adequate, and timely stream of the appropriate resources. How responders are put to work when they arrive on scene is an important part of the incident management system. If front-end management occurs in a pre-planned, orderly manner, the hazard zone workers are included in the incident commander's overall incident action plan. Staging procedures create a safe and standard operational beginning. If workers assign themselves to a place and function unknown to the IC, they make themselves unaccounted for freelancers that will eventually become out of balance with the IC's overall incident action plan. The essence of incident command is represented by the ability of every IC to create, manage, and if necessary, move the position and function of the resources on scene to mitigate the hazards associated with the event. Staging is the act of positioning the apparatus around an event in a way that enables incident commander to deploy the assigned resources as needed to address the critical fireground factors. The first-in engine, ladder, and district chief can respond directly to the location of the incident. All other responding companies should level 1 stage. Level 1 staging. Units assigned in their direction of travel, uncommitted, approximately 1 or 2 blocks from the scene. Apparatus should not pass their last tactical objective when staging. Engines should not pass their last hydrant, and ladders should not pass the last access point. Level 1 staging is in effect with the delivery of an initial radio report. Level 2 staging, used for resources dispatched to an incident beyond the first alarm assignment. Level 2 companies respond to a formal staging area designated by Incident Command. The staging area must be close enough to allow for a quick response, but far enough not to interfere with event operations. The staging area will be supervised by the first arriving company officer, who becomes the staging officer. 3-Deep Deployment Model. The 3-Deep Deployment Model provides command with a staffing solution that allows for an uninterrupted work cycle with each attack position. This deployment model supports and reinforces both the incident organization and the hazard zone communications by ensuring that there are enough resources in the hazard zone, on deck, and in staging to address all of the critical fireground factors. The image above is a depiction of the 3-Deep Deployment Model. You have companies working directly in the hazard zone, with Engine 10, Engine 11, and Engine 12 in the hot zone. They are being supervised respectively by the district chief, who's providing division operations in the warm zone, with the embedded safety feature of the ICT in a paired position with the district chief in that forward command position. You have on-deck companies, being Engine 13 and Engine 14, that are outside the hazard zone but immediately deployable into that division by the district chief. We also have Level 1 and Level 2 stage companies that provide additional resources and layering for the event in Engine 1, Ladder 1, Engine 2, Engine 3, Engine 4, and Engine 5. For all intent and purposes, on deck is a forward staging position. On deck, an integral part of the 3-Deep Deployment Model that places resources adjacent to attack positions outside of the hazard zone. The primary role of the initial on-deck company is as a rapid intervention team. On-deck assignments are given to companies in a forward staging area that can be rapidly deployed to relieve existing crews, reinforce an attack position, or cover another attack position in a specific division. Command function number 2, assume, confirm, and positioning of command. Major goal, to quickly establish and confirm a single IC and to place that IC in the most effective command position. Select the proper command position. The proper command mode will be based on a variety of factors. They include the chosen strategy, the tactical capabilities of the initial arriving unit, and the rank and role the initial IC plays as a member of the initial arriving company. An officer IC of an initial arriving engine company that chooses an offensive strategy will most likely operate in the mobile command mode. If a district chief is the initial arriving unit to the same structure fire, they will operate in a command mode. Chief officers should always operate in command mode when they are the IC. Mobile command positions. Advantages. Enhances crew safety and accountability. Gives the IC another set of critical factors to evaluate, the interior conditions, and usually works to solve the problem quickly. Disadvantages include combining action and command is tough to do, and it's a lousy position from which to communicate, provides you a limited field of vision, and also reduces your span of control. There is no one in a better position to know what is going on and what needs to be done than the initial arriving company officer on scene. First arriving company officers must initiate and continue command until the next company or command officer arrives on scene before transferring command. The entire response team coming in behind a mobile IC must realize that the initial IC is in an attack position and not a command position. We trade off this position disadvantage because many times this initial front-end hit is enough to stabilize many of our incident problems. Command function number 3. Situation evaluation. Major goal, develop a regular approach to size up using the standard information management forms and the critical incident factors. Strategic decision-making model. A standardized sequence of decision-making that allows the first arriving officer to effectively size up the situation as a means of evaluating the needs of the incident based on the critical fireground factors. This provides incident commanders with the tools needed to continually evaluate the strategic, tactical, and task-level needs of the operation while effectively mitigating the hazards and keeping the firefighter safe. The strategic decision-making model is based on our ability to accurately evaluate the critical fireground factors.
With that information in hand, we can establish a solid risk management plan, which allows us to pick the strategy for the incident with the task location and objectives of our incident action plan to satisfy the tactical priorities of life safety, incident stabilization, and property conservation. Departmental SOGs should round out this process to ensure that we're keeping the fire ground safe and mitigating hazards that we're called to respond to.
Critical fire ground factors. Critical factors are a list of the basic items that the IC must consider when evaluating tactical situations. ICs must consider the fixed factors and manage the variable factors. Fixed factors include the building, the occupancy, and the arrangement, while variable factors include the fire, the life hazard, resources, actions, and any special circumstances. Fixed factors pertain to things that we can't change, things like the way a building sits on a piece of property. Fixed factors exist before we get to the scene. Some fixed factors are so overwhelming that it creates too high a hazard to conduct interior operations, an example being an out-of-control fireworks factory. Other fixed factors, like a well-designed and working sprinkler systems, make doing our job safer. Variable factors are things the IC has the ability to change. If a building is full of cold smoke, the IC can order ventilation. If the building is heavily secured, a ladder company can be assigned to open it up and force entry. Engine crews manage the nastiest variable factor, the fire, by applying a sufficient amount of water on it, overcoming the heat it is generating, and putting it out. When we don't or can't control the variable factors, we want to be in a safe position when the fire consumes enough of the building, causing it to come down. Command function number 4. Identify strategy and develop an incident action plan. Major goal: to use a systematic method to make basic strategy decisions and to develop and initiate a tactical incident action plan. Here we are again at a core of the system, the strategic decision-making model. It is our evaluation of the critical fire ground factors that allows us to develop a comprehensive risk management plan. From there, we'll create our strategy, being offensive or defensive, and then we'll move into our incident action plans with a task location objective for every company on the fire ground. From there, we'll help reach our tactical priorities that are backed up by our guidelines and standard operating procedures. Apply the standard risk management plan throughout the incident. We will risk our lives a lot to save savable lives. We will risk our lives a little in a highly calculated manner to save savable property. We will not risk our lives at all for what is already lost, people or property. The risk management plan not only describes the level of risk we will expose ourselves to, but also the reason or gain we're willing to take the risk. The risk management plan described in this text is in direct harmony and alignment with our tactical priorities. As a general rule of thumb, incident operations will normally begin when conditions are at their worst. Incident conditions should improve and become safer after the initial attack is put into place. The ongoing evaluation of operational effectiveness is a very big deal that directly impacts both service delivery and firefighter safety. Strategy: offensive versus defensive. Most of us understand that there will be times when we show up on location and we will be investigative. Investigating is not a strategy. It's merely a means of evaluating the critical fire ground factors to determine if we're going to be in an offensive or defensive strategy. Now, an offensive strategy is predicated on one simple concept, that we are working our way toward the seat of the fire inside the hazard zone to isolate, confine, and extinguish the fire. Where a defensive strategy is going to take place outside the hazard zone, where we are going to position our companies in a tactical way to ensure that we can control the spread of the fire and confine it to a given structure. Offensive tactical priorities. Fire control is the number one offensive tactical priority. The sooner we get the fire under control, the sooner it gets better for the firefighters, the people we've come to help, and the structures we're battling the fire in. This is followed by conducting our primary search, ventilation, secondary searches, loss control, and ultimately, firefighter decontamination. When we talk about fire control, we're talking about the act of isolating, confining, and extinguishing the fire in the hazard zone. Our number one priority in any offensive situation is put water on the fire as quickly and as safely as possible. Again, our primary objective is to put the fire out. Once that fire is out, part of fire control is checking for extension in that area of origin. As safely as possible is defined as the further away from the fire you are in order to control or extinguish it, the safer you are. Upon the arrival of suppression companies, all efforts must be directed at putting the fire out. We need to put water on the fire as quickly and safely as possible. Sometimes this means we will flow water from the outside to reset the conditions on the inside using the steady application of a straight stream or smoothbore nozzle so we can safely enter the structure to isolate, confine, and extinguish the fire. Other times, it might mean that we flow water from inside the structure from a protected position. By using the full reach of our hose string, we can attack the fire from positions that do not expose our members to direct contact with radiant energy. The sooner we get water on the fire, the sooner all the other problems start to go away. Remember, fire is a heat and pressure-driven event. Water does not push fire, pressure does. Defensive tactical priorities. First, we must define the hazard zone itself. Then, we must establish cutoff points to that hazard zone. We must search our exposures and get primary and secondary all clears in the exposures. Then, we must set up to be able to protect our exposures by getting the fire under control and stopping the loss.
Command function number 5, communications. This section will be covered after command function number 8. Command function number 6, organization. Major goal: to develop an effective incident organization using the division group system to decentralize and delegate geographic and functional responsibility. The majority of incident management problems can be traced back to some type of strategic or organizational snafu. We must have a system in place that quickly allows the IC to decentralize the incident into smaller, more manageable, effective, and safer work units. Now we're going to discuss safety zones and the rule of sixes. Each level of the organization, the strategic, the tactical, and task level, has a different set of safety responsibilities, and no other level can perform the safety functions or responsibilities of any other level. At the task level, firefighters and officers have a safety responsibility for task level assignments. Each member in the hazard zone has the responsibility for ensuring their own personal safety, roughly a 6-foot action zone, and the officer has the overall responsibility for ensuring the safety of the entire crew operating in the hazard zone. That's roughly a 16-foot zone. At the tactical level, as the nature of the incident escalates, the event is subdivided by assigning division officers to forward command positions. The division officers are responsible for the tactical deployment and supervision of all the resources assigned to the hazard zone in their particular division. Again, this represents an approximate 60-foot zone. At the strategic level, the incident commander has the responsibility for ensuring the safety for the entire event. The incident commander's safety zone responsibility is all-encompassing, represented by the 360-degree safety zone. And as you can see with the 6, the 16, the 60, and the 360, that's where we get the rule of sixes. Now we're going to discuss the task level safety responsibilities. Now, the task level is where the work is performed by the assigned companies. The strategic and tactical levels are in place to support the task level work. Task level activities are supervised by company officers working with their members directly in the hazard zone. The image on the left shows that each individual member inside that hot zone has a 6-foot action circle where they're responsible for their own personal safety. And the captain has that 16-foot action circle where they are responsible for the entirety of their crew. Now, the company officer responsibilities are listed on the right-hand side. The company officer has the responsibility of ensuring that their crew follows the guidelines, that they were put into the game properly, that they manage the crew's accountability using voice, vision, or touch, that they have a round-trip ticket both into and out of the hazard zone, that all members are staying on the hose line, that they only advance that hose line a max distance of roughly 175 feet. That's based on a 200-foot crosslay with a 25-foot offset. That they're managing their crew's work rest cycle, and that they are always keeping their crew intact, maintaining continuity. The tactical level safety responsibilities are depicted by the image on the left. At the tactical level, the first management subdivision of the incident is usually done by assigning a division officer to a forward command position. Division officers are responsible for the tactical deployment and supervision of all assigned resources in their division. These tactical assignments are made directly by the IC to specific units. Now we look at that, we've discussed the companies in the hot zone, but you see there that the forward command officer, a district chief in this case, has the 60-foot action circle of making sure that they're keeping everybody in their area of responsibility safe. That includes the companies in the hot zone and the companies in the warm zone in an on-deck position. Now, the tactical level responsibilities really breaks into two categories. You have both tactical and safety responsibilities built in. The tactical responsibilities are ensuring that the risk management plan is being followed, that the tactical priorities are being met, that the positions match the conditions for which you're experiencing, that there's a division IEP in place, you're coordinating with other divisions, and that the division plan matches the overall plan established by the IC. At the safety level, a variety of responsibilities also exist. You have accountability for everyone in that division. You have to manage the air of the people working in that division. You must manage the work-rest cycles of the crews. And you must manage on-deck crews along with recycle and rehab responsibilities. Finally, we get to the strategic level safety responsibilities. At the strategic level, the person who has the overall responsibility for the entire incident is the incident commander. The primary responsibility of an incident commander is always matching the company's position to the incident's current conditions. Essentially, this is managing the strategy. This is a huge safety piece of the system. Being able to control the position and function of hazard zone companies is the very definition of being in command. Now, they expand on the definition of being in command with the safety responsibilities with the list on the right-hand side. The incident commander has the overall responsibility of being the safety boss for the event, and the responsibility for managing all the activities inside the hazard zone. Their actions should be based on SOGs and the Fire Command Incident Management System. They will be performing all 8 functions of command. They will continually evaluate the incident's critical fireground factors to allow them to continue to have a solid risk management analysis being conducted. This will enable them to develop and manage the strategy. It will allow them to coordinate the incident action plan with the divisions and groups. That will ensure that they manage the completion of tactical priorities, and they will deliver resources based on division and group requirements.
Command function number 7, review, evaluate, and revise. Major goal, to confirm that the current incident action plan is meeting the tactical requirements of the incident and adequately provides for the safety of the workers while addressing any areas that are not covered. The biggest reason we do a never-ending size-up, evaluation, and revision is so our workers can operate safely, complete the tactical priorities, and go home after the event. The standard front end begins with incident operations under control and within a structured plan. Having the IC perform the standard command functions from the very beginning of the incident operation provides the launching pad for revision process that is required to keep the strategy and IAP matching the conditions. The ongoing evaluation of the incident's critical factors is the basis of both setting up and keeping the IAP current. The IC must constantly be verifying that our operating positions always match the current conditions. The IC uses the visual size-up of conditions and progress reports as the basis for command function number 7. The goal of the system is to place an incident commander in the command mode as quickly as possible. The IC can then monitor the overall effect that operations are having on the incident problem. The IC gets IAP info back from the operating division and groups. This information should include a description of the critical factors and to start to uncover any critical unknowns in a division or group. The IC can see the overall conditions from the command post and tell if conditions are getting better or worse. This brings us back to our system core of the strategic decision-making model. Our continued evaluation of the critical fireground factors will ensure that our risk management plan matches up with the incident. From there, we'll determine if being in the offensive or defensive strategy is right for the conditions of the event. With that, we'll create our incident action plan with task location objectives for every company on the fireground to help us meet our tactical priorities, which again are backed up by our guidelines and standard operating procedures. System safety requirements for an extended offensive fire operation. The listed elements provide the basic safety systems that are required to conduct operations on continuing and escalating offensive fire situations. Our members generally get into trouble on the fireground at around the 10 to 12 minute mark in the operation. Most maydays and line of duty deaths occur at this same time frame.
Situations that are not stabilized within 10 minutes after we arrive on scene require these safety elements to be in place to protect the workers in the hazard zone, preventing serious injury and death. This includes having one IC from the onset, making sure that everyone operates within the IC's plan, and this should be guideline driven. We call for the required resources early. Initial action should be devoted to fire control to support search operations. We must cover and assign all required tactical positions. A strategic IC should be in place within 5 to 7 minutes. Command officers should be placed in tactical positions within 10 minutes. We should expect fire control within 10 minutes and revise the plan accordingly. Later arriving units should be put in on-deck positions. Reinforcing our attack positions more than one time should be a red flag. And the IC should be continually evaluating and adjusting the IAP as required. Command function number 8. Continue, support, and terminate command. Major goal: to provide the required duration of command necessary to complete the tactical priorities, to standardize how command is transferred, and to ensure that operations are safely concluded. It is counterproductive to build a command organization that is big enough to manage the invasion of a foreign country just to run a simple 2-engine and 1-truck assignment. Our standard objective is to provide enough command to manage the units that will be required for the length of time it is going to take to complete the tactical priorities for the incident. The ability of the IC to effectively conduct command operations over this time period determines the overall management effectiveness of the entire operation. Every tactical situation involves a different combination of the standard elements that affect the length and intensity of operations. Assume, maintain, and upgrade effective command positioning. Offensive incident operations will usually begin with an IC that operates in the mobile command mode. This ends when the incident problem is solved or command is transferred to an IC that will operate in a command position. Command is reinforced as later arriving chiefs or officers arrive to the scene that support IC. The system must be designed to support incident command in managing any type and size of incident that your department responds to. The system must progressively and naturally expand to improve the position of IC and the level of IC support. We must assure that all pertinent information is passed up and down the chain of command. The sharing of information becomes the mechanism we use to keep the IAP current and make sure the actions match the conditions on the fireground. The IC must have any information that impacts completing the tactical priorities and anything that affects firefighter safety. Much of this information makes its way to the IC in the form of progress reports from division officers and forward operating companies. The IC becomes the information hub connecting all the incident players. The IC also serves as an information relay, sharing critical information with the functional and operational areas where the information is needed. Critical information must be processed back into the IAP and shared with the people that are affected by it as soon as it is obtained. Use standard command transfers. We transfer command from a company officer to a chief officer to match the level of command required to conduct safe and effective incident operations. We must use a regular system to do this. It cannot be a mystery about who the IC is or how command gets transferred from one officer to the next. When command is transferred from the initial IC to the second arriving IC, it needs to be clear that command has been transferred from one person to the next. This transfer process works best when the outgoing IC and the incoming IC have a face-to-face meeting. As incident operations wind down, command is transferred from the current IC to a company officer that will be the last one to leave the scene. This is normally done at the very end of the incident after all tactical priorities have been achieved. We must ensure that an adequate critique process is underway before the decommittal of units. The critique process is where we figure out what went well and what we could have done better. This is a key piece of the action management cycle. Develop SOPs, training, application, critique, and revision. Revision and improvement is only possible if we conduct regular critiques. Critiques must be conducted to improve incident operations. Critiques should not be a painful, flesh-tearing event. If they become a forum to launch personal attacks, no improvement will ever come from them. The opposite is also true. If they are nothing more than a group hug where there are serious operational problems, they are completely meaningless. Hazard Zone Management Communication Overview, Command Function Number 5. Effective incident communication provides the very practical connection between and among the three management levels of the organization: the strategic, the tactical, and the task level. Incident communications is the information carrier that the teams use to connect, commit resources, and create effective, coordinated action. Jumping on communications as the major problem at incidents where things go wrong is fairly predictable, and it happens quite a bit. This should be a strong indicator of how critical effective communication is to virtually everything that occurs during incident operations. Therefore, communications becomes one of the major pieces of command and operational effectiveness. The radio is where the IC acts out all of the command functions. To be effective, the IC must somehow orchestrate an ongoing combination of these standard communication activities among the set of participants who are all actively involved with the incident and operate at their own level. Each level operates with its own special set of needs, capabilities, and challenges. These differences create a complex set of communication operational realities for the entire team. They require a strong, well-practiced, and procedure-based communication plan and positive functional relationships among the participants. While communication, in and of itself, does not put water on the fire or patch up the wounded, in most cases, the overall outcome of the incident is directly connected to the quality of the communication process. Properly following communication guidelines and practicing radio discipline is essential for safe, well-managed, and effective operations. This is important at the task level, the tactical level, as well as the strategic level. Communication guidelines set the stage for how we're going to communicate with one another before the event occurs. Communication guidelines must be designed to prevent us from going into communication overload. We need to develop systems and methods that allow for the timely sharing of information, particularly when the incident has expanded and large resources requirements are needed. All hazard zone communications must be structured around the order model. The order model outlines communication steps we follow to ensure messages are always received and understood, despite the rushed, confusing, and dangerous conditions we typically face during operations. The order model also standardizes how the incident's participants will exchange two-way radio communication. Order model. The order model standardizes the communication process between incident participants and outlines how the exchange will take place over the two-way radio. The following is an outline of how the order model should work on the fireground. The sender will contact the receiver. The receiver will indicate a readiness to receive the message. The sender will transmit the message or order over the radio. The receiver restates the message, paraphrasing the message to confirm the understanding of the message. And then the sender has the opportunity to correct any misunderstandings. Properly following the order model will reduce the overall amount of radio traffic and enhances the accountability process. In addition, following the order model will prevent deployment mistakes, directional mistakes, and fireground freelancing. If you look at what we say over the radio and when we communicate it, it all pretty much falls into these 6 basic types of hazard zone transmissions. There's an initial radio report, a follow-up report. There are assigning units to operating positions or functions on the fireground. There's a transfer of command. There's CAN reporting that includes the conditions, actions, and needs of the crews operating inside. And then a strategic shift, offensive to defensive. The rest of this program breaks down the individual elements of each of these forms of communication. The practicing of these different elements will hopefully develop habits and routines for the stuff we say on the radio. This becomes extremely important before the group starts simulating together. We all need to be on the same page with each other when communicating. These exercises will get the class on the same page, and the apples will mean apples and oranges will mean oranges to the entire group. Initial radio reports. Chief Brunacini has said the initial radio report is probably one of the most important communications we transmit throughout the entire incident. The first IC begins command, control, and communication process with a brief initial radio report that describes the conditions that can be seen from the initial command position. This is usually given by the first-in-engine company. This report is directed to everyone responding to the scene while simultaneously advising dispatch of the size-up upon the initial IC's arrival. The initial radio report also connects those listening in, non-responding companies and anyone listening to the assigned TAC channel, to the initial situation status. The initial radio report should set off a chain reaction of standard organizational elements. First and foremost, It lets the entire response team and anyone listening in on the radio know that someone has arrived on scene. The incident problem gets identified, the strategy and incident action plans are declared, and it also puts IC in command of the event. Command and communication SOGs are designed with the IC as the central communication player. If the IC can't control incident communications, the IC cannot control or manage the response of the incident. Initial radio report. The initial radio report, usually given from the front seat of the engine, begins the command, control, and communication process with a brief report that describes the conditions witnessed upon arrival and will be the reflection of the strategic decision-making model. The 7 basic elements of the initial radio report include the following: clearing the alarm and announcing your arrival on scene, a description of the building, area, size, height, occupancy type, a description of the problem, nothing showing, light smoke, working fire, defensive fire, the initial incident action plan, actions being taken by the first arriving company include the task, location, and objective of those actions, a declaration of the strategy, offensive, defensive, or possibly investigating, a resource determination, and the assumption and naming of command. As mentioned earlier, the initial radio report should directly reflect the strategic decision-making model. It is our evaluations of the critical fireground factors that allows us to develop a comprehensive risk management plan. From there, we will create our strategy that will lead us to our incident action plans that will allow us to satisfy our incident priorities or tactical objectives. And all of this is backed up by the SOGs we use in our fire department.
Clear dispatch. This little act may seem insignificant, but clearing the alarm before we start talking on the radio accomplishes a great deal for us. Clearing dispatch does 3 specific things for the first arriving unit or incident commander. 1. It ensures that the initial radio report is being given on the proper radio channel. 2. It alerts all other responding companies that you have arrived on location and you're ready to transmit your initial radio report and assume command of the event. It also ensures that Level 1 staging procedures will automatically go into effect. Once you have cleared dispatch, you begin the initial radio report with Engine 1 is on location of.
Building description. The building description falls into 3 basic categories. We want to describe the size, the height, and the occupancy type. Size of structure. The size of a structure should be defined by a standard unit of measure and not the occupancy type. The standard unit of measure in Blue Card program is the 200-foot cross lay. We will look at these in terms of small, medium, large, or mega. Again, these are not absolutes, they are merely a frame of reference. The maximum depth into the structure with an IDLH atmosphere is usually around 150 to 175 feet. Now that is 100% dependent on the offset between the initial apparatus and the structure for which you're making entry into. Now when we're talking about the size, what we are trying to determine is what percentage of an area of a structure can the 200-foot crosslay access. A small structure would be accessible by 100% of the 200-foot crosslay, meaning that no matter where you make entry, that crosslay off that apparatus can get to 100% of the fire area. If the structure is medium in size, the 200-foot crosslay will be able to access most of the area, and that's plus or minus around 75% of the structure. With a large structure, the 200-foot crosslay should be able to access around 50% of the fire area depending on where you make entry. A mega size, or kind of like a big box store, the 200-foot crosslay will probably only be able to access around 25% of the fire area. How we define height is similar to how it's always been done in the past. We're going to use the number of stories to describe the above grade height of a structure. Use the number of sublevels, basements, parking garages, etc., to describe the depth below grade of a structure.
Building description, occupancy type. 7 major or basic occupancy types include residential, multi-unit residential, public assembly, strip malls, commercial or industrial, institutional, and high-rise. Clearly, we can name a number of other types of occupancies. For the purpose of this class, we will be working with commercial structures, strip centers, single-family homes, multifamily apartment complexes, and big box stores. Describing the problem. There are 4 standard narratives that we use in the fire service to describe the fire conditions. They are nothing showing, smoke showing or light smoke, working fire, and defensive fire conditions.
Smoke showing. Smoke showing should be a term used to describe the fire's location. The term working fire should be used to describe the fire conditions whenever a handline will be advanced inside to control the fire. An example of the communication would sound like this. Engine 1 is on location of a small 2-story house with a working fire on the first floor. We have smoke showing on the Alpha and Charlie sides. Geographic landmarks. The address side of the occupancy typically becomes the Alpha side, but when you're looking at naming the other sides of the occupancy, it goes from Alpha and it works in a clockwise direction with Bravo, Charlie, and Delta. There may be situation when there is confusion on how the landmarks orient with the streets. If that is the case, then the initial arriving IC must be able to designate the Alpha side of the structure. Longer strips, rows, and apartments for our exposures. How do we go about naming those? We identify exposed structures to the main fire occupancy by the side they are on, starting with the closest. So if our main fire occupancy becomes the Alpha occupancy, the unit immediately to the left becomes Bravo 1, to the left of that becomes Bravo 2, to the left of that becomes Bravo 3. The same goes working toward the right of the main fire occupancy. You have your Delta 1, Delta 2, and Delta 3 exposures. Initial Incident Action Plan, IAP. The Incident Action Plans describe our operational plan for completing the tactical priorities. IAPs should be short and to the point. They also get out of date as conditions and priorities change. Starting out with the strategy defines the overall approach of the operation. The location identifies the areas, the corresponding key tactical positions where operations will be identified. This process requires the IC to prioritize the first, second, third, and etc. areas that must be addressed. The tactical priorities define the current tactics to be used in these locations.
Once the initial arriving unit provides a description of the problem, the officer must provide the responding companies with a plan on how he or she plans to address the problem in the form of an incident action plan. The incident action plan must address 3 items: the task of the unit, what they're going to do, the location of the task, where they're going to do it, and the objective of the task, what they hope to accomplish. Providing a clear and concise initial radio report with an easily identifiable incident action plan sets the tone for the rest of the event and provides the responding companies with the best chance to effectively manage and coordinate all the tasks required to mitigate the hazards and get the event under control. Declaring the incident strategy up front as part of the initial radio report puts everyone on the same page. This eliminates any mystery of how we are going to operate at the scene, along with where we will do it, inside or outside the hazard zone. The strategy drives the tactics. If the IC declares an offensive strategy as part of the initial radio report, one would assume that deck guns and other master stream devices are not going to be part of the tactical plan, not unless conditions change drastically. If the IC declares a defensive strategy, responding resources are thinking of big water and cutoff points. Including the strategy in the initial radio report also matches the description of the critical fireground factors. Alarm bells should be going off throughout the system if the initial IC reports that they are on scene of a large abandoned warehouse that is fully involved and finishes with, "We are going in with an 1.5-inch attack line for search, rescue, and fire control, and we will be operating in the offensive strategy." Based on this initial report, the initial IC must be stopped. We have seen instances on this exact situation happening that were quickly remedied when the responding chief asked the initial IC over the tactical radio channel to reevaluate the strategy. Having the IC declare the strategy should cause them to pause long enough to do an actual size up and then match their actions with those conditions. Resource determination. This forces the initial arriving companies to do the task math before entering the hazard zone. The first arriving IC must match the incident problems with the resources required to solve those problems. The request for the appropriate amount of resources must happen at the beginning of the event, where our window of opportunity has the greatest chance for success. One of the things that young officers tend to forget, but not always, is calling for the necessary resources early on in the event. The initial radio report forces us to make a resource determination early on in the event. This could be anywhere from canceling the alarm or calling for additional resources, such as a box alarm. Assuming and the proper naming of command is very important because it identifies the incident command for this particular event. Everyone assigned to the incident knows they are operating for Main Street Command, As an example, when Main Street Command radios dispatch to ask for another alarm, dispatch will know to send more resources to the Main Street incident and not the Elm Street incident that is being worked on the other side of town.
Putting it all together, initial radio reports. The next 5 slides will be examples of initial radio reports based on 5 different occupancy types. Keep in mind, you will have the same voice playing different roles on each slide.
This is an initial radio report for the commercial occupancy shown above. Engine 1 calling OEC with initial radio report. Go ahead with your radio report. Engine 1 is on location of a small one-story L-shaped commercial occupancy. We have a working fire with smoke showing in Alpha and Charlie. We're establishing a water supply and stretching a hand line into Alpha for fire control primary search. We'll be in the offensive strategy. Fill out the box alarm. Engine 1 is assuming Main Street Command. OEC receive Engine 1 on location of a small one-story L-shaped commercial occupancy with a working fire smoke showing in Alpha and Charlie. You have a water supply and taking a hand line into Alpha for fire control primary search. You're in the offensive strategy. We're filling out the box alarm. You're now Main Street Command. This is the initial radio report for the strip center shown above. Engine 1 calling OEC with initial radio report. Go ahead with your radio report. Engine 1 is on location of a medium one-story strip center. We have a working fire with smoke showing in the Alpha center occupancy. Establishing a water supply, stretching a hand line into Alpha for fire control primary search. We'll be in the offensive strategy. Fill out the box alarm. Engine 1 is assuming Main Street Command. OEC receive Engine 1 on location of a medium one-story strip center with a working fire in the Alpha center occupancy. You have a water supply, taking a hand line into Alpha for fire control primary search. You'll be in the offensive strategy. We're filling out the box alarm. You're now Main Street Command. This is an example of initial radio report for the single-family house fire shown above. Engine 1 calling OEC with initial radio report. Go ahead with your radio report. Engine 1 is on location of a small 2-story house. We have a working fire with fire showing in the Alpha Delta corner and the Delta exposure roof line. We're establishing a water supply, stretching a hand line to Alpha for fire control and primary search. We'll be in the offensive strategy. Fill out the box alarm. Engine 1 is assuming Main Street Command. OEC receive Engine 1 on location of a small 2-story house with a working fire showing in the Alpha Delta corner and Delta exposure. Establishing a water supply, stretching a hand line into Alpha for fire control primary search. You're in the offensive strategy. We're filling out the box alarm. You're now Main Street Command. This is an example of the initial radio report for the multi-unit apartment complex shown above. Engine 1 calling OEC with initial radio report. Go ahead with your radio report. Engine 1 is on location of a medium to large 3-story apartment complex. We have a working fire with fire showing on the first floor with possible extensions to the second, third floor, and attic space. Engine 1 is establishing a water supply, stretching a hand line to the Alpha exterior to knock down the exterior fire. We'll be in the offensive strategy. Fill out the box alarm. Engine 1 is assuming Main Street Command. OEC receive Engine 1 on location of a medium to large 3-story apartment complex with a working fire showing from the first floor through the second and third floors. You've established a water supply, taking a hand line to Alpha for knockdown on the exterior to reset the fire. You're in the offensive strategy. We're filling out the box alarm. You are now Main Street Command. This is an example of an initial radio report for a big box store. Engine 1 calling OEC with initial radio report. Go ahead with your radio report. Engine 1 is on location of a mega one-story tilt wall warehouse. We have a working fire with cold smoke showing in the Charlie Delta corner. We're establishing a water supply, stretching a hand line toward Charlie that will be used for fire control and primary search. We're in the offensive strategy. Fill out the box alarm. Engine 1 is assuming Main Street Command. OEC receive Engine 1 on location of a mega one-story tilt wall warehouse with a working fire, cold smoke showing in Charlie Delta corner. You have a water supply. You're taking a hand line to Charlie for fire control primary search. You're in the offensive strategy. We're filling out your box alarm. Engine 1 is now Main Street Command.
Follow-up reports. The follow-up report represents the culmination of our 360-degree size-up. If the initial radio report is the information that's provided from the front seat of the cab upon our arrival, the follow-up report is the information that we'll provide once we've done a complete 360 of the entire hazard area.
The follow-up report should include results of the 360, any hazards or safety concerns that are identified, any changes to the IEP, the first in, accountability, location, and a tick reading prior to making entry. The initial radio report is usually performed from the front seat of an apparatus. Once the report has been given and OEC acknowledges the report using the order model, the company officer gets out to perform a 360-degree size-up. Follow-up reports make the initial radio report a little shorter, and they give the initial IC a little more time to size up the situation. The follow-up report will probably be the last transmission a mobile IC gives before entering the hazard zone. This report gives the IC a last chance to give clear, concise information before he or she enters the hazard zone.
Putting it all together, follow-up reports. We will be providing follow-up reports to 4 of the occupancy types that we provided initial radio reports for. Again, one voice will be playing all the roles associated with this communication.
Keep in mind that the first-in officer has already assumed command of this event and will be functioning as Main Street Command. This is the follow-up report for the commercial occupancy. Main Street Command calling OAC with the follow-up report. Go ahead with your follow-up report. 360 is complete. No hazards have been identified. We have no basements. There's no change to our IAP. Engine 1 is the alpha side accountability location. Tick reading is 225 at the front door. OEC received command, 360 complete, no hazards, no basements, no change to your IAP. Engine 1 is the alpha side accountability, 225 at the door. This is the follow-up for the strip center. Main Street Command calling OAC with the follow-up report. Go ahead with your follow-up report. 360 is complete, no hazards, no basements, no changes to our IAP. Engine 1 is the alpha side accountability location, temperature is 300 at the door. OEC received command, 360 complete, no hazard, no basement, no change to your IAP. Engine 1 is the alpha side accountability, 300 at the door. This is the follow-up report for the 2-story residential house. Main Street Command calling OEC with the follow-up report. Go ahead with your follow-up report. 360 is complete, no hazards, no basements. We're going to reset the fire on the Delta exposure roof line and knock down the fire before making entry into the main fire occupancy. Engine 1 is the alpha side accountability, 350 at the door. OEC received command, 360 complete, no hazards or basements. You're changing your IAP. You're now going to reset the fire at the Delta exposure roof line and knock down the fire before making entry into the house. Engine 1 is the alpha side accountability. Temperature is 350 at the door. This is the follow-up report for the multi-unit apartment complex. Main Street Command calling OEC with the follow-up report. Go ahead with your follow-up report. 360 is complete, no additional hazards or basements. We're going to stretch an apartment link to Charlie for fire control primary search in the first floor main fire occupancy. Engine 1 will be the alpha side accountability location. Tick reading is 200 at the door. OEC received command, 360 is complete, no hazards or basements. Changing your IAP to stretch an apartment link to Charlie for fire control primary search, first floor main fire occupancy. Engine 1 is the alpha side accountability location. Tick reading is 200 at the door.
Assigning units. This is where we physically go to work on the problem that the customer called about. The situation evaluation and basic event profile are what the IC uses to quickly evaluate the conditions that are making the event an emergency. The IC must determine the details of the major incident problems and then convert each critical factor into a related tactical need. How responders are put to work when they arrive on scene becomes an important part of the incident management system. If this front-end management occurs in a regular, orderly manner, then the hazard zone workers become part of the IC's overall plan. This creates a safe and standard operational beginning. If those workers assign themselves to a place and function unknown to the IC, they make themselves unaccounted for freelancers and eventually, sooner or later, will become out of balance with the IC's overall incident action plan. The essence of incident control is the ability of every boss to create, manage, and if necessary, move the position and function of the resources he or she is responsible for. Assigning units to initial operating positions and/or functions. The IC must structure assigning units around addressing the critical fireground factors, achieving the tactical benchmarks, things like fire control, getting an all clear on your primary and secondary searches, and getting the loss stopped. Filling your tactical reserve, i.e. your on-deck companies, and ensuring that you've satisfied the requirements of the 3D deployment model. When assigning units, the communication must include the following: a task, a location, and a tactical objective for the company being assigned. Putting it all together, assigning units. Over the course of the next 3 slides, we will be assigning companies, the first in ladder and second in engine, to the L-shaped commercial occupancy, the strip center, and the 2-story residential house fire. The first in ladder, as a result of being part of the combination of the first in engine, first in ladder, and first in district chief, have the opportunity to go directly on scene. The second arriving engine company, as a result of level 1 staging, would go level 1 once they're on location. Once they communicate their arrival on location, command can immediately grab them and give them an assignment. Ladder 1 is on location. Command to Ladder 1, spot your apparatus on the Alpha Bravo corner, cut the utilities, ladder the building, get a roof report. Ladder 1 receives, spot the apparatus on the Alpha Bravo corner, cut the utilities, and give a roof report. Engine 2 is level 1. Command to Engine 2, spot your apparatus out of the way, pull a hand line off Engine 1, advance through Alpha, assist Engine 1 with fire control primary search. Engine 2 received, pull a hand line off Engine 1, advance through Alpha, assist Engine 1 with fire control and primary search. Now we'll be assigning units to the strip center. Ladder 1 is on location. Command to Ladder 1, spot your apparatus on the Alpha Bravo corner, get the utilities, ladder the building for a roof report. Ladder 1 receive, spot on the Alpha Bravo corner, cut the utilities, ladder the building for a roof report. Engine 2 is level 1. Command Engine 2, establish a water supply, advance a hand line to the Delta 1 exposure for fire control and primary search. Engine 2 received, we're going to establish a water supply, advance a hand line to the Delta 1 exposure for fire control and primary search. Now we'll assign units to the 2-story house fire. Ladder 1 is on location. Command to Ladder 1, spot your apparatus on the Alpha Bravo corner, take a hand line off Engine 1 through Alpha to the 2nd floor for fire control primary search. Ladder 1 receives, spot the apparatus on the Alpha Bravo corner, take a hand line through Alpha off Engine 1 to the 2nd floor for fire control primary search. Engine 2 is level 1. Command to Engine 2, I need you to establish a water supply, advance a hand line through the Delta 1 exposure, go to the 2nd floor on the Bravo side, and start fire control primary search. Engine 2 received. Establish a water supply, advance a hand line to the Delta 1 exposure, go to the 2nd floor Bravo side for primary search and fire control. Command transfers. Serving the role of a working boss in IC is no easy job. The entire response system must support and understand how challenging the initial IC's position is in the front end of these operations. Support needs to come from every responder understanding their own role and following guidelines. The system is designed so fast attacking company officer IC has the time to evaluate the conditions and then effectively assign the next 2 or 3 companies to the most critical areas and tasks. This puts a well-managed front-end piece in place. The command system is supported and reinforced when the first response chief to arrive at the scene transfers command from the initial IC and inherits an effective, safe, and under control incident operation that was put in place by the initial mobile command IC. This upgraded IC will then set up a standard command post where their only job is to continue performing the standard functions of command.
Command transfers. Typically, when a mobile incident commander transfers command to a subsequent arriving command officer, they are physically located in a hazard zone, so the transfer will take place using a portable radio. The first arriving chief officer will respond directly to the scene. If an active hazard zone still exists, or there is still a lot of work to coordinate, command should be upgraded to a stationary command post. IC number 2 must do the following. Must size up the event to verify that all operating positions match the current incident conditions. They must transmit to OEC that District 1 is on location. They must verify with IC1 that the position and functions of all hazard zone resources are correct and must get a CAN report from that officer. They will communicate with IC number 1 announcing that they will be transferring command by stating, "We'll be taking it from out here." Ultimately, they will contact OEC to confirm the command transfer and announce the current strategy and resource determination.
Progress reports to command or division officers should be structured in the form of a CAN report. A CAN report includes the following items. 1. A description of conditions. Where are you? Are you dealing with any obstacles? What are the smoke conditions? What's the internal visibility like? What are the fire and heat conditions? Your actions could include any of the following. You have an all clear on your primary search. You have the fire under control, or you can't find the fire. Maybe you're checking for extension. Your needs could be, we need additional lines. We need to be reinforced. We need to be relieved. Need some more tools or equipment. The culmination of these items together, as a conditions, actions, and needs progress report back to command, allows them to facilitate the necessary actions to get you what you need to do to mitigate the hazards in your area of responsibility. Progress reports in the form of CAN reports should be included in all radio traffic. It doesn't matter if it's routine traffic, roof reports, status changes, priority traffic, or even emergency traffic on the fire ground. The CAN report provides valuable information about the nature of the event. Putting it all together, command transfers. Over the next 2 slides, we will do the command transfers for the L-shaped commercial occupancy and the strip center fire. The same voice will be playing the role of dispatch, IC number 1, and the incoming chief, the role of IC number 2. This is an example of the command transfer for the L-shaped commercial occupancy. District 1 is on location. OEC received District 1 is on location. District 1 calling command. Go ahead, District 1. I understand that you and Engine 2 are conducting fire control and primary search through Alpha, that you have Ladder 1 on the roof giving a roof report. If this is correct, confirm and give me a CAN. Command to District 1. That is correct. The fire is knocked down and primary search is complete. We are overhauling and checking for extension with Engine 2 and have no needs. District 1 calling command. Received. Fire is knocked down, primary search is complete. Overhauling and checking for extension with Engine 2 and you have no needs. I will take it from out here. District 1 calling OEC. OEC, go ahead, District 1. District 1 will be assuming Main Street Command. Will remain in the offensive strategy. Will be holding all companies. OEC received District 1. You are now Main Street Command, remaining in the offensive strategy, and you are holding all companies. This is an example of the command transfer for the strip center. District 1 is on location. Received. District 1 is on location. District 1 calling command. Go ahead, District 1. I understand that you're conducting fire control and primary search in Alpha, that Ladder 1 is on the Alpha Bravo corner getting your roof report, and that Engine 2 is in the Delta 1 exposure conducting fire control and primary search. If this is correct, confirm and give me a CAN. Command to District 1. That is correct. The fire is knocked down, primary search is complete. We're hitting hot spots and checking for extension. We have no needs. District 1 to command. Received, fire is knocked down, primary search is complete. You're hitting hot spots and checking for extension with no needs. I will take it from out here. District 1 calling OEC. Go ahead, District 1. District 1 will be assuming Main Street Command. Will remain in the offensive strategy and will be holding all companies. OEC received District 1. You're now Main Street Command. Will remain in the offensive strategy and you're holding all companies. Radio discipline. Incident commanders must be able to control radio traffic on the tactical channel or they will not be able to control the overall incident. The following will help members maintain radio discipline when assigned to an incident. Know what you are going to say before pressing the push to talk button. Only communicate information that pertains to the tactical priorities or firefighter safety. Allow communication loops to close before pressing the push to talk button. Let the incident commander be the one to contact you. End every CAN report with a needs assessment. This should include your air supply. Eliminate good news reporting unless requested by the IC. This would include all clears, PARs, etc. Remember, it is a push to talk button, not a push to think button. Formulate your thought, then key up the mic to communicate it. Portable radio reporting. There are 4 types of radio communications that are directed to the incident commander. This includes routine traffic, roof reports, status changes, and then priority traffic. Emergency traffic is communication between the IC and dispatch. Routine radio traffic. This is the most common form of communication that takes place on the fire ground. Routine radio traffic is generally initiated by the incident commander and will follow the order model. Once assigned to a hazard zone by IC, companies should work to maintain radio silence unless contacted by command. Putting it all together, routine radio traffic. The next slide will be an example of routine radio traffic. It will be a CAN report being requested from incident command from Engine 3. Command calling Engine 3 for a CAN report. Engine 3 to command. There's no fire in the main occupancy and primary search is complete. We are checking for extension and have no needs. Command receive Engine 3. There's no fire in the occupancy and the primary search is complete. You're checking for extension and have no needs. Roof reports. Roof reports are used to provide an assessment or size-up of the roof to command and companies working inside the hazard zone prior to taking any action on the roof. The roof report should include the following information: the type of roof, conditions of the roof, fire or smoke conditions if present, location of any firewalls, any heavy roof loads, conditions of the attic space if known or attainable, building blueprint or layout of the structure if visible from above. Ladder companies assigned to the roof should provide a roof report to command soon after making access to the roof. In the event that there are no red flags to be reported to command, a standard roof report would sound like this: Ladder 1 calling command with a roof report. In the event that there is priority information that has to be communicated, the roof report would sound like this: Ladder 1 calling command with the priority traffic roof report.
Putting it all together, roof reports. The next two slides will provide demonstrations on the radio traffic associated with a roof report. One will be a standard roof report with no problems. The second will be a priority traffic roof report. This roof report from Ladder 1 would represent standard radio traffic. Ladder 1 calling command with a roof report. Ladder 1, go ahead with your roof report. Ladder 1 to command, we have a flat, stable, panelized roof system with normal dead loads. We have cold, non-pressurized smoke exiting from the vents. Walls are stable and straight. We've completed our assignment, need to exit the roof to be reassigned. Command received, Engine 1. You've got flat, stable, panelized roof system, normal dead loads, cold, non-pressurized smoke exiting the vents, and walls are stable and straight. Go ahead and exit the roof. Go on deck in Charlie. Now this would be a priority traffic roof report from Ladder 1. Now the difference between a regular roof report and a priority traffic roof report is by front-loading the conversation back to command by saying Ladder 1 has a roof report or Ladder 1 has a priority traffic roof report. It allows command to triage the information. So this roof report would sound something along these lines: Ladder 1 calling command with a priority traffic roof report. Ladder 1, go ahead with your priority traffic roof report. We've got a flat, stable roof with heavy dead loads. A firewall separates the main fire occupancy from the Bravo 1 exposure. We've got dense, pressurized smokes exiting from the vent. We performed an inspection cut and found a working attic fire. We need to exit the roof to be reassigned. Command received, Ladder 1. You've got a flat, stable roof with heavy dead loads and a firewall separating the main fire occupancy. You've got dense, pressurized smoke exiting the vents. Your inspection cut showed a working attic fire. Go ahead and exit the roof. Go on deck in Alpha.
Status changes. A status change can occur on the fire ground for a number of reasons and must be provided as soon as possible using the order model. A status change might be necessary for the following reasons: you have completed your current assignment and you need to be reassigned. You're changing locations within the hazard zone. Or you need to exit the structure.
Putting it all together, status changes. The next slide would be an example of a status change being conducted by Engine 1 while inside the hazard zone. In this example, Engine 1 will be requesting a status change while providing a CAN report back to command. Engine 1 calling command with the status change. Command, go ahead, Engine 1, with your status change. The fire is knocked down and primary and secondary searches are complete. We're checking for extension. We need to exit the structure and recycle because we're low on air. Command receive, Engine 1. You've knocked down the fire and have primary and secondary search complete. You're checking for extension, need to exit the structure and recycle because you're low on air. Go ahead, recycle, and go on deck in Alpha.
Priority radio traffic. Priority radio traffic is used for bad news or red flag reporting and should be communicated as soon as possible. Priority traffic should follow the order model, but can interrupt communication loops when necessary.
Putting it all together, priority radio traffic. In the next slide, we will provide an example of priority radio traffic. In this slide, Engine 2 is providing priority radio traffic back to command because they've located a victim on the second floor. Engine 2 calling command with priority traffic. Engine 2, go ahead with your priority traffic. We've located a victim on the second floor. We're bringing the victim out the front door on Alpha. We need a medic unit to meet us and a company to complete the primary search on the second floor. Command received, Engine 2. You've located a victim and bringing him out the front door on Alpha. We've got a medic unit standing by and we'll be sending Engine 3 to finish the primary search of the second floor.
Emergency radio traffic. The incident commander is the only person that can initiate emergency radio traffic on the fire ground. Companies operating inside the hazard zone will contact IC with priority radio traffic. IC will determine if dispatch needs to be contacted with emergency radio traffic. Strategic shifts.
moving from an offensive to a defensive strategy. When the offensive strategy is chosen on our initial arrival, most of the time, a well-placed initial attack solves the incident's problems. But there are many times, and for many reasons, that our initial and sometimes reinforced attack efforts do not solve the incident's problems and conditions continue to deteriorate, to the point where the critical factors indicate switching from an offensive to a defensive strategy. ICs must be very pessimistic in these type of situations, especially if the structure has a primary all clear. Command must change strategies before the building is disassembling itself due to structural damage. When this happens, command is very late in the strategy shift and on receiving end of the building's decision governing the new strategy. The IC must be the single person to make the defensive decision, not the building coming apart. Strategic shift mechanics. Command will contact OEC and ask for emergency traffic, and they'll get the emergency tones. The announcement will be made to all hazard zone units that you are shifting to a defensive strategy. You'll also announce to all units the plan to either tactically withdraw from or the emergency evacuation of the structure. All units should be providing a PAR upon exit, and OEC will repeat the emergency traffic report verbatim. Tactical withdrawal is defined as an orderly withdrawal where interior lines and equipment will be removed and repositioned when changing to a defensive strategy. Emergency evacuation is defined as an emergency retreat where all hose lines and heavy equipment will be left in place and all members in the hazard zone will exit the structure as quickly and safely as possible. A PAR, a personal accountability report, will be obtained for all units exiting the hazard zone after a switch from an offensive to defensive strategy.
Putting it all together, emergency radio traffic. Over the course of the next 2 slides, you will hear examples of emergency radio traffic taking place in the form of a strategic shift that is happening on the fire ground because conditions have changed.
This is an example of the strategic shift for the multi-unit apartment complex. Command calling OEC with emergency traffic. Go ahead with your emergency traffic. We are switching to a defensive strategy in the main fire occupancy. All interior companies should emergency evacuate the structure and provide a PAR upon exit. Attention all companies, Main Street Command is switching to a defensive strategy in the main fire occupancy. All interior companies should emergency evacuate the structure and provide a PAR upon exit. This is an example of the emergency evacuation of the 2-story residential structure. Command calling OEC with emergency traffic. Go ahead with your emergency traffic. We are switching to a defensive strategy in the main fire occupancy. All interior companies should emergency evacuate the structure and provide a PAR upon exit. We will remain offensive in the Delta 1 exposure. Attention all companies, Main Street Command is shifting to a defensive strategy in the main fire occupancy. All interior companies should emergency evacuate the structure and provide a PAR upon exit. We'll remain offensive in the Delta 1 exposure. Thank you for taking the time to complete this continuing education refresher on incident command. We hope that you have found value in this class. Have a great day and stay safe.